What now? After Mac Jones has declared early for the NFL, we're going to talk about the Alabama quarterbacks that are returning to the 2021 season. What's up, fam? It's Kyle Henderson of BamaInsider.com. Definitely hit that thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Clearly, it starts with Bryce Young, the freshman out of Pasadena, California, 6 foot, 194 pounds. We all saw him come into the 2020 season a few times, not as many as I expected him to play during the 2021 season. And we're going to dive into those statistics and kind of break down Bryce a little bit more, because I think a lot of people, they're unsure about Bryce's ability. And I want to reassure you that I think Bryce is going to be just fine leading this Alabama offense into 2021. We all know he's a playmaker. He's got great instincts and he has some experience. This is the first time in quite some time that Alabama didn't really go to that second team as we've seen in the past. And I think a lot of it was because of the SEC only play. There was no room for error, right? You couldn't just dip into the twos because you had to put games away. Now, I know Alabama was a buzzsaw, but still, I mean, I think we saw on the defensive side a lot of players get in the rotation, but it can't say the same for the offensive side. As we look to the overall statistics with Bryce Young, you look at overall the statistics that he put up in 2020. When we look at the cumulative stats for Alabama from the 2020 season, just talking about the quarterbacks, you see that Mac Jones had 402 attempts passing for 4,500 yards. When you look to Bryce Young, here on the bottom of the screen, he had just 22 attempts this season in 13 games. It's really interesting because usually we've seen with Saban that, his second-tier quarterback is going to get reps to get ready for the next season. That just wasn't the case with Bryce Young. And as I said earlier, I think a lot was because of the SEC-only schedule, or it could be something else. I mean, Mac Jones, rarely came out of games this year. And Bryce Young enters the 2021 season with some experience, but not an overwhelming amount of game experience. Now, let's talk about Bryce Young and kind of what he brings to the table. I think overall, what you're going to get with Bryce Young, and I said it before, is you're going to get a very instinctual player, someone who has that quick twitch ability to make plays. And I think because of his limited opportunities in 2020, he's going to be eager to showcase his overall ability in 2021. And I'm talking about right away in spring ball. And I think that when you look back to his overall season and you look at the limited times that he got onto the field, I felt that every time he got in, it was almost like he felt he had to make a big play within the 5 minutes of game action, right? And I think that sometimes forced him to play a little bit rushed, right? Felt like he had to showcase that magic that he's going to bring to Alabama in terms of, I got 5 minutes. I got to make the most of it, rather than taking over for an entire game and playing relaxed and really getting the football out to his playmakers. We just didn't see him do that. But we have seen Bryce Young's ability to lead an offense, and you kind of have to rewind to when he was leading Mater Day during his senior year, and we'll showcase some highlights of that. Because I think from his tape, and you have to rewind to high school, you saw that big arm, the quick twitch ability, the ability to make defenders miss that are coming after him and to keep his eyes downfield to throw the football. I mean, some of the highlights that this kid has at the high school level are really, really incredible, and I think we didn't get to see that, and maybe we did. I mean, think about the game against Kentucky where he made a defender miss, steps up in the pocket, and then fires out the football to Devontae Smith. So getting back to that playmaking ability, Bryce Young clearly has it. So I think that when you look at his sample size from 2020, don't look at it as, oh man, this guy isn't it. Think of it as this guy didn't get opportunities to really run the offense. I mean, this guy came in during many times when Alabama was up by 3 touchdowns, 4 touchdowns, and really you're taking the air out of the ball at that game, right? You're feeding it to the running backs. You're not trying to run up the score on the quarterback. So overall, I think Bryce Young's statistics from 2020 and overall his overall play is kind of circumstantial, being that, Alabama just didn't necessarily need for him to step up in a serious role and to lead the offense. So I think when he does have a larger opportunity, when he is the guy, when he is the #1 quarterback leading the offense, he's going to flourish. Now, I do think when you look at Alabama's overall offense, that there's going to be a lot of missing pieces that Alabama is going to have to put together. Now, of course, Alabama doesn't rebuild, they reload. But in this case, you're not going to have Najee Harris. You're not going to have Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith. You're not going to have Alex Leatherwood. You're not going to have Landon Dickerson and Deontay Brown. So the offensive line completely helped Mac Jones do his thing. And, of course, there's younger guys that are going to step up for Bryce Young on the offensive line, but you're going to have to get those players a lot of experience, and you're going to start to see a lot of that develop during the springtime for Alabama in 2021. Let's talk about Paul Tyson, another quarterback on Alabama's roster, redshirt freshman out of Trussville, Alabama, 6'5", 228 pounds, the great-grandson of the great Paul Bear Bryant. He's a quarterback at Alabama that a lot of people don't know a lot about. I think a lot of people are very curious to see what Paul Tyson will bring to the table. And let's talk about Tyson and kind of dive into what he brings to the table. Now, I think when you first look at Tyson, you see that, number one, he has the size, right? He's the biggest quarterback on Alabama's roster, even this last season, right? 6'5", 228 pounds. He's got a huge arm. I'm telling you, you've seen him at practice several times. He can zip the ball around, and he has that height, right? Think about it. Alabama's offensive line sometimes 6'6", 6'7". So Paul Tyson has that ability to see over the line, but he has limited experience, almost zero experience. I think he played in 2019 just one time against Western Carolina, but he redshirted his freshman year, and he didn't get any opportunities during the 2020 season, which is pretty interesting to think about. I mean, you look at the fact that Bryce Young barely got on the field. Paul Tyson now in his second year at Alabama has played in just one game. So talk about having to be patient and hone in on your craft. I mean, this guy has been the quintessential motto for being patient. And I get it. You know, the expectations are high for all of these guys. I think a lot of people, knowing that he's the great-grandson of Paul Bear Bryant, want to see him on the field, are curious about his abilities, and he's going to get that opportunity eventually. But as you can see, he's got that live arm and the ability to really zip the football. So I'm excited to see him in some sort of a spring, in the spring game, I guess, right? Because you're going to really get to see what he can, how he can lead this offense. I think it's been a while since Alabama has had a big pro-style quarterback. I mean, Tua wasn't the biggest quarterback. Neither was Jalen. And neither was Mac Jones. I guess Mac Jones, you could call him a pocket passer, but he didn't have that overwhelming size that Paul Tyson has coming in. So that's exciting. A guy that can just kind of sit back and zip around the football. And similar with Bryce, I mean, him coming in, he doesn't have a very experienced offensive line besides Emil Ekiyor and Evan Neal and potentially Chris Owens, you know, if he comes back. So these guys are both coming back on an even playing field, in my opinion, because they don't have a lot of experience. So when you talk about quarterback battles, I don't think it's going to be a quarterback battle per se. I think Bryce is certainly going to be the guy that is leading the offense as a #1 quarterback going into spring football. But that doesn't mean that Paul Tyson isn't going to get opportunities and isn't going to get an opportunity to make a name for himself during this 2021 season. So definitely don't sleep on Paul Tyson, because I expect really big things from him this season. Jalen Milro is an early enrollee that is coming from the Lone Star State. As you know, Alabama went into Texas and landed 7 prospects from the state of Texas, Jalen Milro being one of those guys out of Katy High School. As you know, Katy always sending out big-time players, and Jalen Milro coming in with some good size, 6'3", around 200 pounds. And when you look at Milro, he's definitely got that dual threat ability. He does have a good arm, and you know, like kind of the rest of these guys, I mean, almost no experience. So you look at Alabama's overall quarterback depth chart coming into the season, Alabama's had experience there, but Jalen Milro coming in and can clearly compete with Bryce and Paul Tyson. I mean, he's going to be behind in terms of the terminology, but another leveling factor is the fact that Bill O'Brien is taking over the offense, right? So I'm sure it's going to be similar to Steve Sarkisian's setup in terms of the Alabama offensive approach, but none of these guys are coming in with the same offensive coordinator, and I think that creates a level playing field for all of these guys. I want to see how Jalen Milro can create opportunities for himself, how he can get out of the pocket, how he can stay in the pocket. I think we're all curious to see just what Jalen Milro brings to the table. And these are the 3 quarterbacks on Alabama's roster. And I'm interested to see how these guys play out in the springtime. And if, you know, potentially Alabama maybe reaches to the transfer portal or to maybe a grad transfer to come in as a quarterback that has a little bit more experience. Let's just see what happens kind of going into this 2021 season. Let me know your comments inside the comment box. What do you think about Alabama's quarterbacks that are returning for 2021? I'm curious to get your feedback on Bryce Young and Paul Tyson, just considering that these guys are the two front runners going into the 2021 season. Hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe. We appreciate you guys being with us right here on BamaInsider.com.